Welcome, everyone, to the Tabletop Podcast Roundup panel. Here at Carnage 21, we have some great panelists here for you tonight. And before actually, let's just jump right into it. I want to get to know these guys. Let's start at that end of the table. And why don't you let me know who you are, what show that you're with, and what inspired you to start creating content?
My name is Jordan Streeter. I'm the founder of Gamers Against Alzheimer's. I have my show thus far is it's called Greater Restoration, actual play 5th edition broadcast, and I got into this just 2 years ago, just to start raising awareness and funds for the Alzheimer's Association. Just through gaming events, trying to reach out to the gaming community because it is a passionate bunch.
Yeah.
Trying to get them involved with the cause.
Now, Jordan, I don't want to, but your dad had Alzheimer's.
Yes. It was actually about 2 years ago this month that my father actually passed away from complications from Alzheimer's and dementia. But that kind of spurred me on to, like, I need to get out, do something, and I might as well do something and try to help in a way that doing something I enjoy.
Yeah, that's very admirable. I mean, a lot of people are affected by this, and ourselves, our grandmother last year, same thing.
Very sorry to hear that.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
I guess it's my turn?
Yep.
So I'm Doug Shute. I do Victory Condition Gaming. I started, it will be 4 years in March, this coming March. It started as me and my daughter. My daughter was, how old is she now? Jordan, tell me how old she is. Jordan. What? Jordan.
Okay.
She was 8 at the time, and she could read really. She entered kindergarten with an 8th grade reading level. She taught herself to read at 2.
Yep.
And so we had some social issues with her going into kindergarten, where she was really advanced in reading. And then there were some social issues and math issues that weren't as developed. So we were trying to figure out ways to help her in those areas. And I thought, well, board games. That's kind of that works with all those different traits with development. And so we started doing board games, and then one day I let the camera run and I uploaded it up to YouTube, and it was really cool. Like, the response that we immediately got was really cool, and so that's how we started Victory Condition Gaming. Since then, it's kind of evolved. She still comes on and does featured content with me with various projects with publishers and designers. But now it's evolved into live games. I worked in the convention circuit for a while, so I met Jordan and Josh that way, and we did live games at conventions, and then now I do interviews, actual plays, playthroughs, reviews, all sorts of content. This year we actually launched a podcast form of our show, and then we also do Twitch and YouTube and all sorts of stuff. So
cool.
Yeah.
Wow, great.
So,
yeah.
My name's Jonathan Marshall. I am the DM for the Natty19 Podcast. It's an actual play, D&D 5e, and we pretty much got started. It's not very romantic tale at all. I've got Christy and I. We're married, 3 kids, all under the age of 5.
Not very romantic.
That's not romantic at all.
Are you married?
Wow.
There's no romance.
It's not going to be now.
No, and it's it was it was mostly because all of our time is consumed between work and raising the kids. We can't really go out and do much, and I grew up with playing Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition. It was actually Charlie's my older brother. He got me into it, him and all his friends, and we played it for a long time, just sporadically here and there. I got all my friends into it. It's probably a story, similar to most people. Just got out of it for a while. It just kind of got swept under the rug, and you just kind of lose it. Well, now we're all kind of older and got kids of our own and looking for something to do. And obviously the landscape is completely different now. You've got virtual tabletops between Fantasy Grounds and then you got Twitch. So you got all these online game sessions. You can play D&D or other RPGs with people from, across the world. But at the same time, as much as I loved watching those and reconnecting with my childhood on that level, I wanted what I had before, whether it be for nostalgia. So, and I know Chuck was always talking about it. We discussed, like, wouldn't that be cool if we get a D&D game going? Well, and we did. We hadn't played D&D since 2nd edition. We knew he had played 3rd edition. I didn't really. So I knew that going into it, I'd have to learn a whole new system. We picked up 5th edition, and I liked it. It was. I actually, I don't know if it's because I'm a lot older now or what, but I feel like my brain wrapped around the whole concept of D&D in a much different way, and I find myself even more enthralled by tabletop RPGs as a whole nowadays more than ever. And I wanted to share that experience with the world, with my friends, with people driving to work, that they can follow along in this cool story. And I presented the idea to these guys, and we had always talked about doing something, but we didn't realize that our destiny was to do an actual play Dungeons & Dragons podcast until then. So here we are.
Excellent. Let's move over to this side of the table.
Hi, I'm Josh, and I have a YouTube channel called Halloweenville, which started out as a haunt vlog, building props, making costumes.
Excellent.
All that kind of happy fun stuff. And I've always wanted to be an actor, always. And I've tried multiple things, never worked out for me, but RPGs are a great way to do that, and you get to play multiple characters, whether you're on the player side of it or DMing. Which is great because multitude of all kinds of good guys, bad guys, you get to play the whole ring of it. And I slowly started adding in other things, and one year we went to a convention and met Mr. Douglas Shute, and it has been a crazy thrill ride ever since, and have brought a lot of us together, and I get to work with wonderful people like Jordan Streeter, Amanda Kahl, and so many others. And it's really great because it's led to other wonderful things happening and getting involved with the community and all these charity gamer organizations such as Jordan's Gamers Against Alzheimer's, Gamers for a Cure, and there's a couple others that we work with. I also have gotten involved with one of the gaming stores in the University Mall, Vermont Gaming Academy. And I'm their DM there on Saturday nights, introduce tabletop gaming night, and just
very cool. Yeah.
Really getting them, and they do some really great charity work as well. And it's just a blast, and getting to know people and making new friends. And I couldn't ask for a better life, better opportunity than what we're doing now.
Yeah.
That's me. Okay. So I'm Christy Lee Marshall, Jonathan's wife. So my story is basically his story.
Is it romantic?
It's very romantic.
Okay.
He lied to you. I guess I'm the newest player, right? I'm the noob of the group. I've been playing RPGs for 2 years now.
Yeah.
So yeah, my story is basically the same. Growing up, I was always into high fantasy books, movies, all that kind of stuff. I played Magic the Gathering through college, and D&D was just something I always wanted to try but never tried. That's why I married him. I'll give it a go.
Steep price. Hope it was worth it.
But it ended up working out well. I can't imagine a better way to spend our weekends doing it. It's a lot of fun.
Cool.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sam Kurnit. I am the Dungeon Master for Improvised Weapons, which is a 5th edition actual play podcast featuring comedians and improvisers in the great state of Vermont. I actually came to D&D relatively late in life. I didn't play for the first time until I turned 29. And it was just sort of a random like happenstance of running into college friends who were like, oh, we all live in the same city now? We should actually see each other. Yeah. And one of my buddies was like, yeah, I really want to run a D&D game. So my wife and I went, we played, one session with him, and we were like, this game's amazing. Where has it been for our entire lives? And then we played that campaign for a while. After a couple years, we had moved away so my wife could go to school. And I was just kind of going through withdrawal. Where I was like, I don't have a game to play, and I want to have a game to play. And I know all of these funny people. I'm an actor, a voice actor, and an improviser. I'm a big part of the Vermont Comedy Club scene in Burlington. So I know a whole bunch of stand-ups and improvisers. Wouldn't it be fun to get them together? I bet it'd be a funny game. And really, my motive was, if I make it a podcast, then my friends have to do it because they're obligated to do a thing that other people will listen to. So I kind of conned them into it. Yeah. But it's worked out so far. We just recorded episodes 71 and 72 last night at this very convention. So we've been going strong on it, releasing weekly for over a year, which is so much work. It's so mind-boggling. But it's also been a blast, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah.
We'll get into the work. All right. So how much thought went into the conception of the project? I know for some people it just sort of started happening, but once it started happening, or maybe before you jumped in, did a lot of thought go into the idea? Did you deliberate on the systems, the source material, the overall tone of what you were putting out there?
Everything that I've worked with and everyone that I've worked with has just been in the last 2 years. I have tried my best to plan things as much as possible.
We did not make it easy for you.
Not the game itself. I'll get to that. which went fine. Because when I started off, I was just I'm a volunteer demonstrator for Slugfest Games, which makes a card game loosely based off of tabletop role-playing games called Red Dragon Inn.
I'm familiar.
Yes.
It is so much fun. And then I was doing that at a store in Williston that unfortunately closed called Killer Rabbit, which is where Doug and I were introduced by the owner. And it's just kind of been a whirlwind from there. And when I started getting more momentum on this in general, that's when I started reaching out to the Alzheimer's Association, which was also in Williston, Vermont. They told me about an event that they do every year that's been going on for the last 7 years called the Longest Day.
Okay.
And I thought, well, has anyone ever done a gaming event for this?
What is the Longest Day?
The Longest Day is it's a celebration isn't the right word. It's an event that the Alzheimer's Association puts on nationwide. It started roughly 7 or 8 years ago as a marathon during the summer solstice. Just a 16 hour marathon to raise awareness for caretakers of Alzheimer's patients, because for them every day is the longest day.
Right.
You sign up. You would sign up. You get people to sponsor you. The funds would go to the Alzheimer's Association. That has evolved over the last several years to include more and more styles of events. Some people chose to. It's like, well, I can cook for 16 hours and bring everything I've done to a separate event, raise money for that. Some people will just challenge themselves to something like reading a single book, multiple books for the entire, sun up to sundown.
Yep.
I decided to just bring the gaming community into it with an event called the Long Game.
Very cool.
I scrambled for quite some time trying to find a venue. The Burlington International Airport was very kind to us, letting us use the space. They have a mezzanine level above their main lobby. Doug came along for the ride, helped me organize that. I think did most of the legwork, for getting in touch with the other gaming
with other folks.
the other members of the gaming community that we've worked with,
Right,
Josh
right.
included,
Yeah, absolutely.
Gem Hammer and Sons, the people who run Carnage were there. Gamers for Cure came to help out. The Villainous Vixens, Improvised Weapons, of course, came to help out with doing a live performance. And I wanted to try running a D&D campaign as well, which I had previously never done before. It went okay.
I'm sorry I missed that. I hear wonderful things about that episode.
I'm sorry I was there.
Me too.
No, again, it was fine. It was a great episode. We didn't get as far as I would have liked, because I wanted to try to work in a campaign I found concerning, spoiler alert, mind flayers. Mostly because it's like reading up mind flayers.
Yeah, I'm taking notes. It's okay.
Yes, yeah. Eventually, you'll get there eventually, I think. But
Probably not.
I wanted to try to use a module written by James Hayek from Wizards of the Coast.
Yep.
Just because looking through random things, mind flayers and the effects that they have on people, very similar to what happens with patients of Alzheimer's and dementia. And I've been struggling trying to where a lot of inspiration came from the other podcasts I've listened to, particularly Improvised Weapons.
Shucks.
I'm trying the tall line of trying to be funny, but without being insensitive to the cause and people who are actually going through this.
Yeah.
Kind of a backstory on this, where I first started playing tabletop role-playing games was about 2 to 3 years ago. My friends were running Pathfinder.
Yep.
And we had a break when I went to see to my father. Came back. I'm not even not mince words. I wanted to hurt something. I was so angry, and I found that next session, after coming back from my dad's funeral, so cathartic. And it was a safe way to do so. I thought, I want to do that for the Alzheimer's community, because it's such a wonderful thing that it gives you the power to take on something extraordinarily big.
Yeah.
And in a fun way as well.
This is something that you participate in every year or run every year?
Well, we've only done this once.
Yep.
So far, this past June. We are going to be doing it again this coming June, the 21st through the 23rd. I'll be running the next episode of Greater Restoration, which will continue on from the story. And again, hopefully I won't offend anybody by doing this, but I think once we get going in the right direction, I think it could be seen as helpful and as well as entertaining.
Yeah. And
Sorry,
I'm sure
went on for a long time there. Sorry.
And I'm sure anybody that knows you, and even just having just met you, I could tell like all of this is from a sincere place. So it'd be, I feel it would be very difficult for somebody to be offended, understanding this.
Thank you very much.
And
Wow, how do I follow that?
Sorry to set the tone.
You should probably just say something offensive.
Yeah, let me just
Right
offend
off.
everybody
Should you
at this
re-ask the
point.
question?
Yeah, it was just like, how did
Yeah,
how much
uh,
come up with?
so how did you approach your content? Was it something that you deliberated on? Was it something that sort of evolved? Did you deliberate on the system, the tone of the show?
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's good. It is a good question. Originally, it was Sydney and I, and we pick and choose our subject matter. A lot of it early on was board games. We picked stuff, and we'd have publishers that would reach out to us because they liked having like that father-daughter aspect of board games. It was pretty cool because a lot of board game companies didn't realize that there was this market for young girls that didn't have to be pink and sparkly and princessy and butterflies and everything. Like my daughter was playing, all sorts of like Arcadia Quest and like all these other miniatures board games, and she was enjoying it. So we did that. I featured a lot of stuff that she was excited about. We'd pick and choose just because I don't like to say bad things about folks that create stuff for this industry. So if it's something that I'm really excited about and that she's excited about, then that's what we would choose. Eventually, I knew that was only going to last for so long, and your eighth grade daughter or your 8-year-old daughter is a lot different than your 12-year-old daughter, and now it's not quite as cool to be on Dad's show and film content. And Dad, do I really have to do this for the 7th time?
Yeah.
Like,
Is this a Puff the Magic Dragon scenario?
yeah. So it's been. I knew that eventually I was going to have to evolve the content, and because we built an audience, and it was kind of hard to figure out, well, what am I going to do with this audience that I have established? How do I keep them and also not disconnect from them because they've tuned in for a certain reason? And luckily, what was that?
You're fine, Doug. Just keep going.
They looked in, they saw me talking, they walked out. That's pretty much that's
You offended them.
yeah.
sounds
I
about
figured.
right.
I'm sorry.
It was more of the odd squeaking of the door.
So eventually, it just kind of evolved into okay, well, I'm meeting all these other people through the convention scene. Let's start like this kind of network and this team of contributors, and now I have folks that are all over the country that come on the show and contribute, and it's awesome. It's like you just connect with. I love connecting with people anyway, and so when you connect with people even online that come on, it creates something. It now that I don't know how to explain it. But that seemed to hit with my audience as well. So I just think it's kind of evolved naturally, and I knew it was going to have to, and I'm just really, really grateful that I've met these guys and Kent Blue from the Role Play Podcast. And
Doug, I can't remember. Was that your first collaboration?
I think so.
With the Batman
I think
miniatures
you were.
game
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
So
He was the catalyst. He was the
He
catalyst.
was the catalyst.
It was. I walk in. I'm like, do you mind if I record this demo? Because he was demoing Golem Arcana.
Yeah.
And I said, do you mind if I record this for my YouTube channel? He goes, you got a YouTube channel? I got a YouTube channel. Oh, we should work together. Yeah.
And and that's a natural part of when I first started this whole venture, I knew that there are certain things that you need to do to grow, and collaborating is definitely key to that. And so luckily I've been able to find Josh. I found Josh early on, and then I've been able to connect with other folks, and other folks have reached out to me as well, which is really, really awesome. And it's always awesome to connect with folks that contact me because of the show, and then meeting folks that like Jordan and Rob and Jamie Holden that do Gamers for a Cure, because I never wanted this whole venture to be just about me and Sydney. I wanted to do something good. The gaming community is just awesome.
Yeah.
Like you guys are all like some of the most generous people, like, and just so much. You guys are so much fun, like, and you get behind everything. Like, so, like, let's do good with that. Let's create, not only do we help the industry, but let's show folks why the industry is supported by these awesome folks. And so that's not part of this question at all. But I'm sorry, but I love everything that this whole gaming represents.
Very cool.
Do you remember the question this time?
Yes, I'm sorry.
I suck. How much work goes into it?
When we formed Natty19 Podcast, how much did you deliberate on what kind of content, the tone of the show, what system we were going to, what went into deciding what we were going to do?
I knew we wanted to play D&D primarily, or play a game. We wanted to play. And so we knew the show wasn't going to be, like a talk show or something, where we discuss rules and just, you see those. And I love those shows, but I knew we wanted to play. We didn't have a lot of time. Playing had to be it. So, and then it was what to record, what to play. I wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons. I had my heart set on it. But at the same time, I had been looking at Pathfinder. Probably a lot of influence from the Glass Cannon podcast, if you guys heard that. I just started listening to that as a recommendation from a friend of mine, and those guys were really inspiring. Like I said, we didn't have a lot of time. We knew we wanted to play D&D, and then we were worried about, would it change if we put microphones in front of everybody's face? Would that still be the D&D that we wanted it to be? And it's a weird thought, but it's a valid point. People might shut down, people might go the opposite, or they just might feel uncomfortable altogether doing it. So at first there was a little back and forth about that, finding people to play with. We knew we wanted everybody to be in the same room. Planning that out was tough, and then it was what adventure to play. At the time, Wizards of the Coast announced the Tomb of Annihilation campaign adventure, and I had never done in my life anything in that kind of jungle Indiana Jones-esque setting. So I was clearly everybody was looking at me because who's DMing, and everybody's looking at me. It was your idea, you do it. So I was terrified. I was like, I know nothing. I loved Indiana Jones, obviously, but running a campaign's a bit different than watching Harrison Ford charge across the jungle.
Is it though?
It's just a different format that I'd never experimented or explored, But I started looking through it, and I got even more stressed out. Just the way that book was laid out, for whatever reason, in my mind just wasn't connecting. I was like, I'm going to have to write up everything until maybe chapter 4. But it started to come together. I saw everyone rolled up characters, and it was awesome, And thanks for coming, guys. And it started to make sense coming into it, and then I started to get excited. But then that wasn't it. So that we got the game set. But then there was, okay, now that we decided to record, Do we know anything about recording or getting us out there? No, we don't.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Okay.
We'll get into that a little
All right.
bit.
I'm going to spring off Jonathan just because it's the same
Sure.
group. So some things conceptually when we were entering that we considered were things like if it was going to be funny all the time or how serious we were going to take it. Or were we going to meet in the middle? And we kind of chose to sort of meet in the middle. A lot of our actual gameplay as characters is serious. We try to stay in character, but outside of that, there's just constant jokes amongst players. Yeah. So that was like something to consider, because sometimes you hear the podcasts that are just goofy all the time. Sometimes you don't even know what's happening in the plot at a point. And then other times,
Jordan,
I may have some questions.
and then other times they're so serious that they're, maybe you could consider them dry. Both aspects though have their merits. Like somebody's having a lot of fun and someone's taking it very seriously. So when we were coming up with the concept, that was something we considered, like how to balance that properly and for listeners to enjoy it, because it's
Good
not just
point.
about us now. It's about listeners. And then another thing I think that was considered was there something else I had to say?
I guess nothing else was considered. That was a good point, though, about the type
The concept of it all.
Yeah, the tone.
Oh, yes, hard mode. So John and I do everything on hard mode.
Yeah.
Everything. Like
Almost nightmare mode, but...
we
Questions?
yeah, can we talk about that just for a little bit?
Yes, even that. We wanted kids, and we had 3 kids in 4 years.
Wow.
We wanted, everything that we do, we wanted to play D&D. We're like, oh, well, let's record it, and let's use something we've never used before, and you need to learn all about Shute, and everything that we do is on hard mode. So as far as coming up with things conceptually, we always bite off more than we can chew. We always aspire to something more than we might be capable of.
I think that's kind of common with content creators, to be honest with you. I think everybody kind of like goes like, okay, I want to do this, and they dive head first, and like they don't realize like how much of an endeavor it is, and it's a learning process. But the folks that continue to do it, like they love it. Like they just want to keep getting better
moving,
and
yep.
keep moving and keep going, and they just go at it full force. And then that's I think
Coming
I
together and
really
meeting
think-
people and then learning from each other also has
that-
been really helpful in development.
Yeah.
Yep.
Actually, yeah, a lot of my education in just tabletop role-playing games and especially Dungeons and Dragons has been listening to all of you, all of you play it.
So Halloweenville. Did you deliberate on that concept? And did you know what you kind of were shooting for?
I had no clue. So I knew I wanted to share, like I had really gotten into YouTube and like I said, started off really big into Halloween. I wanted to share all the props and stuff that I was making, hopefully inspire people. And I always loved to dress up, do costumes. Again, role-playing. Just
Why didn't you dress up today?
This is true, Josh.
Dude,
I
you came in work
Polar Bear
clothes. Why?
yesterday. I figured I'd go normal today, more relaxed.
Take a day off.
Yeah, exactly. That fur gets out of hand. Gets in your food.
You were coughing up hairballs last night.
I was. It got a little rowdy at the chalet.
It did.
Yes. But so my content started off with the Halloween stuff, and I built some really awesome stuff, which inspired people, which got me going. But physically, I was unable to do a lot of the heavy stuff. So, and being the only one to really do all the physical work, I had to slow down. Then I was like, oh, there's conventions going on. Let's go to some of those, because I started getting back into Magic the Gathering, and then we picked up D&D with 5e again, and I started really getting into it, and I like to create physical pieces. So I got into dungeon tile making with DM Scotty and DMG Info, and got in that whole scene.
We're very curious about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm looking, getting ideas and inspiring, and I keep looking up, and I found Acquisitions Inc. and other various podcasts and things like that. So I'm listening and watching these various different shows, and I come across create your own dungeon tiles from things you can find around the house. Cardboard, hot glue. Yeah, I've got that laying around. As a creator, I have it. So I started watching DM Scotty's videos, and he got me hooked. I was like, oh yeah, I can take cardboard and slap that and put some paint on it. And then behind him was the DMG Info, which said, okay, well, here's these tiles. If you create this set of tiles and buy my module for 99 cents, you'll never have to create dungeon tiles again unless you really want to. So I built his 80 tile set with more on top of it, because I'm like, oh, I got an idea. So it was very inspiring. And then I started getting into all these little bits, and oh, okay, he made a bookshelf, but there's nothing on the shelf. Let's put it on the shelf. I want to make little books, but I want covers on the books. So I came up with a way to shrink the book covers down and slap them on the books, so that when somebody actually inspects the piece, because they love to pick up those pieces, and they look and they go, oh, that's my favorite book. Oh my gosh. So I'd hide little gems in the pieces themselves. We can play D&D, Theater of the Mind, and things like that. But some people who may have never played before or doesn't have quite the imagination can physically see and touch, and oh, that's in the room. Oh, okay, I know where that is, and that is, and they could pick it up, they could touch it, they could. I always get a lot of compliments when we actually did our first collaboration with Victory Condition Gaming. I brought in my dungeon tiles and showed them off and everything, and it's made from cereal boxes, much like my hat is actually all cereal box pieces and some fur. I got at a sale and stuff like that, and hot glue and paint, and just build it all together. So I've got shelves and shelves of all these dungeon tiles, and I could build dungeons for days.
And is a lot of this stuff featured on your channel?
Yes, I do have quite a few tutorials and information that I share too. So sometimes I'll reference a video that I saw that inspired me to make this version of this, and share that around. But then I met Doug, and Doug says, hey, I want to do some live streaming games and get into this stuff. And he started doing interviews with creators, and I'm like, that's really cool. So I was like, well, if we're going to do things, I better start cleaning up my channel, making it real nice. So I started going through and readjusting everything. Okay, how do I make custom thumbnails that everyone's using? How do I look more professional?
Yeah.
Hard mode time now.
That's right. That's where it comes in.
And then Doug starts seeing the thumbnails, and he goes, wait, how'd you do that? And then Doug starts doing thumbnails, and we would bounce off of each other back and forth, and it ended up being great. And then started getting involved. Hey, I'm going to do a live D&D show. I'm putting this together. I'm like, that's really cool. I want to be a part of that. And then we did the first show, and it was such a big success.
Yeah.
And I love the character so much, because throwing halflings across an open pit of flames. Ooh. And
I hate halflings.
Ooh. I have to say,
no offense.
I have to say, yeah, for that game, my favorite creation of yours is the crown.
The poop crown.
Yeah, that our halfling earned.
Yes. So the halfling did earn a poop crown from the bugbear.
I think so.
Bugbear, king of the... Yeah. So I actually crafted, for the following game, a crown that looked like it was made out of poop and had bugs and things on it, and gave it to him at the beginning of the live show. You are now our
Where did that come from? Where did that come from exactly? You think didn't Joe like ask the audience? Okay, the bugbear is wearing a crown. It's made of twigs and
Yes.
he said berries. What kind of berries? And he polled the audience, and I think someone said dingle.
That's
ran
kind
with
of
it.
some improv stuff right there.
Yeah.
Is that what inspired you to directed your
everything boils
content?
down to poop for sure.
Yeah.
While I was going through sort of that withdrawal phase that I talked about earlier, I had gotten heavily into a lot of other actual plays. I was listening to Acquisitions Incorporated. I was watching a lot of Critical Role, Matt Mercer's My Spirit Animal. Listening to the Adventure Zone, and kind of those three together sold me on 5e pretty much right away. I had not yet played a game in 5e, but I was like, I love this system.
Yeah.
It's got all the fun crunchiness from 3 and 3.5, but it's got also like the fun action adventure aspects of 4 without being kind of too far in either direction.
Yeah.
So I was sold on that right away. And then I spent probably a solid 6 months or so just writing.
Very deliberate approach.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of decisions I made at the beginning about the podcast. I wanted to do a completely original world and original storyline. For me, I love all the modules that Wizards of the Coast has put out. They're all really interesting. But to me, playing through one of those and watching someone else play through one of those means that then I can't play that one because I kind of already know what happens. So I'm way more interested in the original content, what people come up with based in the systems that have already been put out. So I started building a world. I built my own pantheon of gods, and then just here and there over the 6-month period, all of this before sound waves ever hit a microphone, I was just being like, oh, this is another idea I came up with. Oh, that's gonna be perfect. Oh, this is how magic is governed in my world, and this is what this society is theocratic, and this society is a monarchy, and figuring out all of this stuff, and this is the part of this continent is mostly this race, and this is why, and this is how they interact with each other, and figuring out all of this stuff before I even had a cast for the show. I was just like, I want to be prepared when everything finally happens.
You can never be.
No, you can't be. That's what I learned.
No, you definitely cannot.
You absolutely cannot be prepared, especially if you've ever listened to my show and you know what my players do. The improvisers is a double-edged sword. They never do what you expect them to do, but they're also very good at not doing what you expect them to do. So it works well for the entertainment aspect. But yeah, I made a lot of deliberate decisions because there were things that I knew based on what I wanted the show to be. I wanted improvisers and stand-ups. I wanted people who not necessarily are funny, but can think on their feet very quickly and know how to convincingly play a character and just build off of something where there was nothing beforehand. So that we could have a lot of fun interpersonal discussions and not just have it be roll dice, you hit, roll dice, you do this much damage. I wanted there to be all the meat that goes in between that, so that we care about the characters that we have on the show. And I think we've really landed on that with the cast that we have. I love the people that play on my show, and they do such a good job of keeping me on my toes. Because they're insane in all the right ways, but they're also very good at dealing. I throw them a lot of curveballs. I try to keep the show as quote unquote grounded as a fantasy location can be in giving them real consequences for things and decisions that are not black and white to make. I want things to be difficult and muddy and hard to find their way through. I want to throw problems at them that I haven't thought of solutions to, because I want them to just figure it out with the tools they have at hand, because it's also less work for me then. I don't have to figure out how to solve something. It's up to them. That was kind of all the stuff that I wanted to do with the show, and while they have creative input in terms of what happens on the show, none of them work on the show outside of the actual sessions we do. I do everything otherwise, much to my own chagrin. because, like I said earlier, it's a lot of work. And I unfortunately have very high standards, which means that I lose a lot of sleep.
Yeah. So we started to touch on this in terms of preparation. You started to go into like you put 6 months of prep. Actually, let's start this way this time. Sure. We'll keep going with this. So you had 6 months of preparation before you even recorded a single episode. Did you have the technical knowledge already that you needed? Did you did you invest in it? Did you have like costs that went into the show?
Yes, and yes. As my wife nods her head emphatically. So I, amongst other things, I'm a voice actor, so I know a lot about audio fidelity and recording myself. So I had a lot of that knowledge going into it, which is a blessing and a curse for sure. I definitely labor over things more because I hear everything that nobody else hears. So I hear every click and pop that spit bubbles make in your mouth, things that no one else will notice, but I notice them and I can't leave them there. So I spend a lot of time going through and figuring
Our
out.
guy's nodding over there. He's not on camera, but he's nodding.
No, I was very familiar with several audio editing programs, and I certainly know my way around a microphone. So I had a lot of that knowledge going into it. What I didn't have was all of the equipment that I needed going into it. I myself had one microphone and an audio interface and a computer. One of my players had a set of like crappy mics that we were using for a while until we were able to invest more, and then we needed to get a new audio interface so we could plug in more mics, and then we got more mics, and then now we have mics for everybody, so we needed to get another audio interface. And thankfully we have a Patreon that we have some very loyal fans that have contributed to, that's paid for a lot of the upgrades that we've done over time. So I've been paid back for a lot of the money that I've invested. The time that I've invested, I mean, there's no way to be paid back for that. I'm just, gonna die at some point. I don't get those years tacked on at the end that I've spent doing it. It's all things that I've enjoyed doing for sure.
It's the life we choose.
But yeah, the investment was definitely palpable. I mean, I was lucky that I had the training that I had going into it. The learning curve was a lot less steep. I think the thing that was difficult for me was figuring out how to balance everything. I'm so used to using one microphone and recording myself.
Yeah.
Which is very easy. I know mic technique. I know how far I need to be away from the capsule. I know how to ride the gain and do all those things. But doing it for 5 people simultaneously is a very different animal. And then also going one step further and editing all of those tracks together, because I record them all separately, was something that I had to learn how to do. And now, a year to a year and a half later, I have a very good process in for doing it, so I can do it a lot faster. But at the beginning, it was hard.
Christy, do you want to go into any of what Natty19 in terms of preparation, investment?
There's some stuff before I pass it over to Jonathan. He can talk to you about all the equipment and stuff. There was money spent, but I think we did it as best as we could. Mm-hmm. It wasn't horrible. I think so. We were running a different adventure when we decided to start recording an adventure, and we had decided that we wanted to start fresh with something new. So what we were actually playing while the concept of Natty19 was coming along was, what was it?
Out of the Abyss?
Yep. It was Out of the Abyss, and we started recording those sessions. We did it with a horrible mic that recorded all of us at the same time, and none of us had any experience. We didn't even know how to not talk over each other at that point. We didn't even have that skill down. Mm-hmm. So that was something we did that was, I think, huge for preparation, because I had never done anything like this before recording, and I was new to D&D, so I was super nervous. I would like hold my breath and have to back away from the mic to exhale. Otherwise, it would have been like super. I had to like back away and be like,
Pulled a chocolate rain, Saison days back in the day.
Because I would get so nervous about it. And still to this day I do. We recently started videotaping some things, and that adds a new element that makes me nervous. So I'm like, I'm going to fall over. I'm going to pass out. You just start breathing again. So that was a big thing for me personally as a player that we did to prep for our show. That helped me a lot.
Did you want
me to piggyback off of her? Sure, we can get it.
That was all the real information.
Yeah, that was a
player.
big thing. Is we started in preparation. We knew that what we were doing with Out of the Abyss was going to be all just almost like a beta, and we knew we were getting something out of it. We knew we'd need more than one Omni microphone, whatever you call. We knew we all needed separate, but we didn't. That's all we had at the time. But we were like, okay, until we get the money to invest into, let's at least start recording with this. This way we can figure out how long the night is going to translate to after editing. And, you learn so much from that. I had very little, I had a little bit of audio editing experience going into it, just messing around. I've always been into computers and audio editing. I think Pirate Bay for like Acid Music or something like that when I was a kid, and I had messed around on that so much that I going into it, I knew how to edit to an extent. I still don't know all the I'm not educated in it. It's just trial by fire. But we too do separate channels. Everybody's on their own channel. For that, we got pretty much the cheapest equipment that we could find that had the best reviews. Right? These are $20 Behringer microphones that. James had some Shure SMB 52s or something like that. I can't remember.
Isn't this our second round of mics though? Didn't we try some other ones?
At first we started with different mics, but we also, our curse is we have one of our players is actually coming. He lives in Texas, so he's playing on a virtual tabletop, and that added a whole different thing because we had to hear him, and we didn't want his voice coming through our microphones.
We have the same thing right now. One of my players moved a couple of months ago to Chicago, so we stream him in over Skype. Yep. With an iPad that's up on an arm so he can see the map and everything.
yeah.
And we have this whole spider web of cables so that we each have to wear headphones so the tinny audio from him doesn't come into our mics. He records himself on his end and sends me his tracks. Yep. But I also record him on our end so I can sync up the files.
That's right.
Yep.
It's a lot of work. It's awful. It is awful. And we actually haven't got to the headphone part yet. That's what we're saving up our Patreon money for next, is everybody going to get headsets. So we still hear him every now and again. So we have to synchronize his track with that. And because it's transmitting over broadband, it does get out of sync. And so you're constantly having to do that. It's a lot of work, effort, pain. Yes.
K-Way's worth it.
Yeah, he's a great player, great friend of ours. So we're willing to do that. But yeah, but as far as the preparation and the training for it and everything, I think that was it right there. I forgot what the original question was.
No, you answered it.
Okay.
So Halloweenville, did you bring technical knowledge already to the table when you started Halloweenville?
A little bit.
Did you?
A little bit of editing, videos knowledge, from just making home movie videos and stuff like that. And I already had a camera, so I didn't have to worry about that. But when I really started getting serious and met Doug, and I really wanted to get into making tutorial videos and things like that, so I did a little bit of research and said, okay, I could still use this camera. The mic is but I'm going to work with what I got for now. And then as I've gone along, every year I would buy a few new things, and I would discuss with Doug, what are you using, or where did you get that camera, how much it was, okay, and then I'd write that down. Then I'd go on and look at reviews and things like that, and trying to plan with a budget, and so I would upgrade little bits here and there, and I still do.
Yep.
And I use the computer software that my computer came with, so I didn't spend any money there, but I will probably do that in the future as everything grows. And I still had to learn, I'm still learning. The other day I learned how we can actually use a green screen in Google Hangouts. So I bought a green screen, and I've got a whole new setup with a faster computer now. So now I'll be able to do that and do cool effects and stuff. So when I get sent to stupid hell, I have a nice little background.
We've been meaning to do some green screen work in the future here too.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Doug.
Well, when I first started, I don't have a technical background. It wasn't really my forte. When I first started Victory Condition Gaming, it was originally going to be me and one other gentleman who has had a computer science degree, and we went to a company, Harebrained Schemes, and we said, hey, they just put out a tabletop miniatures game called Golem Arcana, which Josh mentioned earlier. It was a digital miniatures game. It was a tabletop miniatures game that used an app. So instead of like using a measuring stick or everything was done with a Bluetooth stylus, and you could reference
Kinda
everything
like
on the screen.
Was it like augmented reality?
No,
or
it wasn't.
Just more like
It was just you'd have like this Bluetooth pen that could, and everything had like microdots on it.
Oh,
So
cool.
it would
Yeah.
read everything. So you touch it with a pen, and it would
Yeah.
read it to the screen. And they had just launched it, and it was really cool. It was kind of innovative, and they didn't really have any online presence. And so we were like, oh, this is really cool. Let's do some online content for them. Do we know anything? Do we know how to do online content? No, we don't. But let's talk to them anyway. So like right before we went to them, and we sat down. We did a conference call, and they're like, yeah, no, we like you guys. Let's set something up. Then like a month before we were supposed to go, my friend was like, no, I got too much going on. I'm like, but man, what do we? I don't want to let these folks down. And I'm not trying to throw them under the bus or anything. We all have lives, and we all have things that have to take priority. And so and I just personally felt like, no, we went to these folks. They really were kind of depending on us. Let's figure something out. So I kind of took the ball, and I spent like a week Googling like as much as I could, and I'm going to tell folks that if you're interested in content creating and any kind of content, use what you have to start out with. Yeah. Make sure that this is something that you want to do before you invest a lot of money into it.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has a phone with a camera.
Exactly. You have a camera. You have, and even you can even record your podcast on an iPhone or whatever now. Just do it for a little while with what you've got, because I don't need folks. I mean. You hear all the time folks get burnt out creating content, and it's horrible. Like I know folks that just went out and were like, no, I'm going to do this, and they go out and buy all this equipment, and then they do it for like 6 months, and they're like, this is horrible. Like I don't like doing this. I'm like, and they've already invested all this money into it, and it's just like, oh man, I'm sorry. Well, and sometimes they come back, and sometimes we just need a break from creating content. Do
you know how to reach them, or they have any yard sale?
I don't. But that's the main thing that I'm going to tell folks. Use what you've got if you want to start making content, and then slowly upgrade and get better. Always try to keep better, and I think that's what I try to do. Don't settle for what you're creating.
Yeah. If I could just add to that point just real quick,
Sure.
You do what you to addressing people. If you're doing something that you love doing, and you're just doing it and recording it and putting it out there, that's a great idea, because you're at least doing something fun. And if it doesn't take off, if nobody likes you, at least you're still doing something fun, like playing D&D with your friends. But yeah, don't spend a lot of money at first.
Yeah. If you love what you're doing, then most of the time, folks will get behind that.
Yeah, it's enough to keep you going too, I think.
Well, we found that
absolutely.
it's been a long climb and a slow gain. So it can be a little discouraging for a while, and just stay with it and just keep doing what you like doing, and eventually it'll gain traction.
Yeah, I knew that this was going to be like a 5-year process in order to and so when I first started, I'm like, okay, I'm going to commit the next 5 years of my life doing this.
Yeah, cool.
And luckily it's been worthwhile.
Yeah. So Jordan, when you started to create content for Gamers Against Alzheimer's, did you have technical knowledge? Did you decide to invest into equipment?
Not yet. 'Cause of the one episode that we've had, unfortunately, we weren't able to record. It was 10 o'clock at night. We were tired.
Yep.
All of our batteries were dead.
Yeah.
I mostly wanted to have something to play to a small audience, and we accomplished that. Pretty much the only experience that I bring to this is that I have done some just stage acting. I had a stint for a while as just as a writer when I was in school.
Yep.
I've done script writing. I've done fiction, nonfiction writing, and what I'm using for Greater Restoration right now is a module that requires your players to be at a certain level before you start. I didn't want people. I have a couple people that are brand new to playing. And I'm like, oh, just make a level 5 character, but that's a lot of math and bogging and being bogged down to go straight from no knowledge of this to a fairly powerful character. So the first episode and the next episode is a situation I have written myself to lead into the module, and what I do otherwise is I write up a couple other small things to have off to the side in case they go off course.
We will.
Yes. One of you in particular will go in the complete opposite direction of where you're supposed to go.
Joe.
Yes. And as it turned out, actually, for where we did the first episode was at the airport. It was probably best that we didn't record it because of some ambient noise.
Were you speaking of the PA system that
Yes.
was constantly announcing gates and arrivals and departures,
Well,
and also the elevator style music that was playing the entire time?
Yes.
It really set the mood, though.
It did for a massive siege battle on a city. See,
Yeah,
that-
it's barely noticeable in the 2 episodes that we recorded there.
like I went into that when I went to scope out that space where we would be doing that. My sole concern was the overlook to the runway at the airport, and all I was concerned. Oh God, every plane landing and taking off is going to make so much noise. You don't hear that at all in that room. What I wasn't paying attention to was the PA. However, somewhere in the improvised weapons universe is one incredibly badass, possibly invincible town crier.
Who just keeps yelling about the gates.
Yeah.
So, an oblivious town crier, but invincible nonetheless.
Excellent. Well, I want to keep I have one more technical question, so we'll just I'll let you carry that on. We'll go back around, and maybe. Well, I'll just ask it. So, how much effort goes into post-production for the projects that you work on?
For this particular for my game, not really a whole lot. I had the next step already prepared. We didn't get that far.
Yep.
I just for me anything in post is just I just have to keep my notes somewhere while I remember to find them later.
Yeah.
And just I try to stay ahead of so much of things in the writing as possible. But again, with this particular storyline, it is going to lead to a module called Temple of Shattered Minds.
Very cool.
I looked through it. I'm very excited. The next thing I need to nail down, and I'm very excited about what will be a big fight for my players in the next thing with a monster that I have created myself, just so they can't look it up.
Is it an even bigger elk?
No, it is not going to be.
Has three
the elk
horns.
problem has been resolved.
Does anyone ever change the stats of a creature just so trip up your players?
Oh, constantly.
Yeah.
My players would never look up what they're not
No,
supposed
we
to.
No, we don't.
I have angel players.
But yeah, thus far since I don't have a podcast or
Well, if you have a companion module, it almost sounds like you're kind of still in production in a way.
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit. I'm trying to just get everything leading up to where this will start.
Right.
But I hope to, and then I may ask later for recommendations for equipment and whatnot.
Yeah.
To prepare for the next long game. But overall, no, I don't have a whole lot of post-production work to do.
Victory Condition Gaming, any post-production?
I do a lot of pre-production. A lot of our stuff is live, so we do a lot of I do a lot of pre-social media and post-social media and post-editing videos. And this year we launched the VCG podcast. So not only, like, I don't know why I did that, but I did it because I thought, well, I'm already editing and creating all this video content. Let's just take the audio off of that and throw it online onto a podcast. No, you just can't do that. No. So, like, now that takes up, it takes up at least 2 nights a week on top of editing video, creating thumbnails, creating graphics, creating everything else. So most nights, I'm lucky if I get into bed by 3 a.m.
Yeah.
If I get 4 hours of sleep, I'm probably pretty good. At this point, it's at least an 80-hour work week for me, just on top of my 40-hour a week job.
Would you say that the audio has more post attention required than video?
I don't know if it. No, it is. It was. See, since I've been doing video for 3 years, it was. I took for granted the audio aspect of things, because when I edited my first podcast, and even when I go listen to it now, I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe I edited the hell out of that. Like, what the hell was I doing? You don't realize with video you can edit and it's fine because you've got something visual to kind of counterbalance the audio. When you just work with just audio, there's natural pauses and there's so I didn't. Since I'm mostly video, I didn't take that into consideration my first, month or so. So I edited the crap out of it, and it took me 7 days to get that podcast up, because there shouldn't be, any gaps in the audio with folks speaking, and yeah, that was a tough one. Now it takes me, probably 2 days to get the podcast up, and then. And then just trying to get other stuff lined up to go live, and it's a lot of work. It's not to make even just an 8 minute video for a review. Yeah. It takes hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and how many takes, especially with my daughter. We learned early on that when you're working with a 8-year-old girl, you don't pre-script everything. You just kind of just let her do her own, turn the camera on, you kind of let her do her own thing and hope the magic comes on. And it does, usually, because she's an awesome kid, and I'm a little biased because she's my daughter, but
We'll be the judge of that.
Yeah.
She's pretty great. I met her.
there is a lot of post. I think a lot of folks don't realize that when you watch something on YouTube, there's a lot of work behind the scenes that gets done. And with podcasts, now that I do one myself, it's just like it's a huge amount of respect for any content creator that works in both audio and visual fields, and it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Natty19 post production. Have you found the similar?
Absolutely. It's a ton of work, consumes a ton of time. It's frustrating a lot of times. There's silver linings there. I love listening back. It's like I'm also fortunate. James and I own a hydroponics equipment store. That's what we don't have any like acting skills or anything. That's actually one of Natty19's messages to a lot of folk is it pays off to have to kind of have some of those skills to play D&D, and it's definitely a lot more entertaining to listen to people who have acting skills and and stuff like that. But you don't need them, and you guys out there who are thinking about trying it and haven't yet, don't be intimidated by it. Just get in there and do your best to pretend like you have acting skills, and you'll have a ton of fun.
It's just pretending.
Yeah. But
Act
anyway.
like you have acting skills.
That's right.
Yeah, that's
Put
right.
that on a t-shirt.
And but yeah, as far as editing goes, same story, man. You get into it, and it's a lot of work. It can be fun at times, reliving those moments. If they're emotional moments where people are getting angry, it sucks because you kind of, I was talking about this earlier, is you kind of relive those moments too. You're like, oh yeah, he was mad at me. Unbelievable. You know what I mean? Like, I can't believe he got pissed at me about that. But working at the hydro store, not a lot of foot traffic, so I got to do a lot of that, and that is huge. If you've got a job that allows you to at least like work on your podcast at the same time, awesome. Otherwise, I don't know if we'd be able to do it if I had to work in a restaurant and do this and be a father to 3 kids. No way.
Are you hiring? That's pretty much.
Not yet. We haven't actually paid ourselves yet.
Serious question.
We'll get there. Hopefully the podcast will take off and support the hydroponics store. That's my plan.
That's how it usually goes.
But yeah, no, you heard the story from these guys. That's what it is. It's just a lot of work, a lot of hours, a lot of repetitive motions, a lot of clicking, a lot of listening
headaches.
back to the same.
A lot of headaches. John gets a lot of headaches.
I get
from
headaches. I
staring
get
at the editing
sciatica.
hardware,
You have to remember to
software
sit.
all the
If you're
time.
getting to that
Almost sounds like we should do less post.
No, I mean,
Ease
sit and
up a
say you
little.
got to remember to stand up every hour, go walk around for 15 minutes. 'cause
What?
Well, if you've got
What?
sciatic
You can
pain
do
or
that?
anything like that,
You're allowed?
I snore sometimes while I'm wide awake.
I helped John out of his computer chair.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
okay, honey.
I think I must. My microphone thinks I snore during our Tiny Dungeon games because it keeps popping back to me, and I'm like, I'm not saying anything. Why does it?
Yeah, it is. It takes an ear, and you get better. Don't get frustrated. You get better and better at it the longer you go. You'll always listen back to your early days, and you'll be like, "Oh my God,
Yes.
why does anybody
Yeah.
like us?" But hey,
So Halloweenville, do you do a lot of posts for?
Not currently doing a lot of post stuff. I did learn how to stream. So every Saturday when I go to the gaming academy, I stream that live. So I did. That was a learning curve. This whole process is a whole learning curve, and you're constantly learning new things. So I learned how to stream, and I'm like, okay, where do I put the thumb? Why is there? Because it automatically takes a picture, and this is your thumb. Well, no, I don't want that. I want that. And so the first couple episodes I just filmed on normal camera before I learned how to stream. So there was like, okay, I got to cut this, and then I don't like that. Now with streaming, it's like, okay, that cuts my work down at the end of the night.
Oh yeah, I imagine
Josh,
it's a
I was
much
gonna tell
different
you.
approach.
Josh, I was going to tell you, I can help you out with that. I
Yeah.
found a way to figure. We'll have to chat after this.
I got you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do not like where this is going.
So yeah, and then learning how to stream. it was like, okay, less editing. So when I get home at, playing D&D till midnight, I can actually go to sleep.
Yeah.
But I forget to put in like the descriptions and all the links that I'm supposed to add to it.
Yeah.
So 3 days later, it's like, oh yeah, that's way post. So yeah, I'm not doing a whole lot right now.
For us, what Jonathan left out, interestingly, because every time we're doing it, he bitches about it, is at the end of every session, we have to break down all the equipment.
Yeah.
And it seems
We don't have a studio
It
yet.
seems so like it's not hard. Nothing about it's extremely difficult. It's not extremely laborious, but we have to move our couch back. We have to move the coffee table back. We have to undo the table we had set up. We have to take the microphones down, put the microphone stands away, wrap up all the wires. There's that post work too that we have to do every single time.
Yeah, part of the little time. Yeah, we have a limited amount of time to game, and that's part of getting into that.
I'm lucky enough to have an actual game room where when Doug says, "All right, we're done," I can just get up and go.
I don't have that. I have my living room, which I have to set up studio lighting and sound equipment and everything. And so I have to set that all up and take it all down.
Yeah, if we left our setup, between our 3 kids, every knob is going to be.
Ripped so many of these socks apart.
Yeah, we go through these.
All right. So improvised weapons. Do you put as much post as it sound that Natty19 puts into?
I have about 5 phases of post production.
Wow. Yeah.
That I go through. So for the average, most of our episodes are about an hour long.
Yep.
For an hour long episode, first phase I go through and I do a lot of boosting of audio to make sure that at the end everyone's sort of at the same level so we can hear everybody. That process takes anywhere from an hour to 2 hours because I'm going through 5-6 different tracks of making sure that's all where it needs to be. Then I do the edit phase where I cut out the unnecessary silences. I tighten everything up. I get rid of jokes that didn't work. It happens a lot. Try to make it good, and whittle it down to that roughly an hour space. So there's that. Then that takes anywhere from 2 to 3 hours, give or take. So already we're at about 5. Then there's the scrub phase where I go through, I take that, and then I go through the already edited track, and I start taking out all of the lip smacks and the teeth sucks and the mouth noise and all of that stuff that makes me cringe. And I get rid of all that. That takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how good we were during the episode. So that's about 7 hours. Then I go through and I write the intro and the outro and give credit to whoever we need to give credit to. If I need to explain, we cut this episode in the middle, so I didn't give an intro when we were actually doing the recording. I have to do that. And record, and I edit and scrub that, and I do the post-production on that because I do vocal effects. We have a disembodied voice for our announcer that's really just me with a whole bunch of filters on it. Sorry, spoiler alert. What? And that can take a half hour to an hour, so already we're at about 10 hours. And then I still have to upload it, write all the episode descriptions, schedule all the social media posts, take all of the photos and schedule those to go up on our Facebook and Instagram, which can be another hour or so. And post all of our Patreon rewards that go up for every specific episode. So an hour-long episode probably has about 12 hours of post-production that goes into it. That's just me sitting staring at my computer all day on a Monday. And if eye strain is an issue, get a pair of blue blockers for digital eye strain. It helps a lot with headaches. It won't help with your back, but it will help for staring at a computer screen for a very long time. That's something I learned recently that has helped a lot.
I'll probably send you an email just to remind me of it
Yes,
later.
absolutely.
Terrible memory.
But yeah, and this is all, it used to take me a lot longer to go through all of this stuff. This is a refined process now that still takes a long time because I'm really anal about making sure that it's all good. But like I said earlier, my standards are much higher for the things that I put out than any of my listeners' standards for what I put out are. But there's all that. And then the other part of post-production, of course, is writing the next episode. I used to write a lot which was a mistake because they go off track. They don't do the things I expect.
Yeah, I mean,
them to do.
you wrote for 6 months before your first episode.
Yeah, well, that was
Can't
all,
do that
was
with
all
every
the
one of
basics
them.
the world.
If it didn't take off, were you going to write a book? Because that would have been my go-to. I would be like, oh, I got all this stuff. I'm just going to write a book. No.
Would have just burned it. But no, I try to write only about 1 to 2 episodes at a time because I don't know what thread they're going to pull or where they're going to go. So then after every session, I have to figure out like, okay, now I need to write based on all the things they did, where we're going to go from here and what options I'm going to make open to them. And that can take anywhere from another 2 to 4 hours depending.
Yep.
So you're looking at roughly 16 hours of post for just about every episode.
Yeah, so it's a labor of love.
Yeah.
It's a game that we love, but if we want to do
My
this
wife puts
kind
up
of
with not
content
seeing
creation,
me for 2 days at a time every week.
Well, we're getting close to running out of time, so I've got the final question, and that is basically what lessons have you learned, and what advice would you give somebody who wants to start their own podcast or YouTube channel? And we could start with you.
Sure. Lessons I've learned, scheduling 5 people of the roughly 25 to 35 age demographic to be in the same room at the same time is harder than lassoing the sun. It's incredibly difficult. I mean, especially working with the population that I work with, which is people who do a lot of acting and improvising in a, the most metropolitan city that's in Vermont. I don't really know if those are words that go together, but a lot of people work in food service, so that's weird hours, and they tend to work weekends, which is when it's more convenient for things to happen for certain other people. So we have a mixture of 9-to-5ers and like nights and weekenders. So we end up recording a lot at like 8 a.m. on a Sunday because it's just when we're available to do it. So scheduling, I didn't anticipate that would be the hardest part of it all, and it is definitely the hardest part of it all. Yeah. As far as advice to anyone who wants to do a podcast, figure out why you're doing it. If you're like, man, our D&D games are so good and people will love them so much, we're going to do it and we're going to be bigger than Critical Role. Be ready to be surprised because not only is the podcast market booming right now because anybody can make a podcast, the actual play market is very saturated. There are tons of them out there. There are ones that are super gimmicky and they have like very specific things that are about them. And then there are ones that are just people who are like, man, our D&D game is so good, we just have to record it and put it out there. And if you're just doing it because it's something that you love doing and you want to put it out there, absolutely, go ahead and do it. If you're doing it because you're like, I'm going to be famous one day because I'm the best DM on the planet, be prepared to probably be kind of disappointed in it because it's really hard to get off the ground. I mean, we've been doing it for about 1.5 years, and like, we're not famous. I recently found out that I have one person who found out about the show on their own in like upstate New York, who wasn't a friend of someone who's on the show, and it wasn't a word of mouth thing that they found out about it. And that's like the first time that's happened. And that's over 1 year of progressing the story and building all of these characters. So, temper your expectations. Do it because you want to do it, because you love it, and don't expect to be like an overnight sensation. But also don't let that stop you, because it's fun, and it's a good way to con your friends into having to play it over and over again.
Kirsty, did you want to talk about lessons learned or advice?
I guess because I don't DM our episodes, John does. As far as playing goes, I was so nervous, everything about it. Going from being new to D&D and then going to using a microphone and then being on camera. Just don't have fun. Don't stress about it. I try to have a beer before we start playing so that I don't pass out at the table. But yeah, if you have to be committed, and you have to, I'd say, toe the line between being committed and taking it seriously, but not letting it ruin the game for you. It's very important to have fun while staying committed to making a good show.
So I would say do what you love. If you think it's something you want to get into, just turn on a camera and start that way. I think that was mentioned earlier before.
Take a shower first.
Yeah, please. Good thing they don't have smell-o-vision now. I think everyone wears pants on our show.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
Although I don't.
Well,
We won't.
Sometimes
Yeah.
they're PJs.
Well,
Sure.
Ours only usually just shows
Yeah,
us
yeah.
dressed up. So
that's why the
I'm not making any promises that I don't.
But you do wear a lot of half shirts.
I do. Absolutely.
I believe that's called the crop top.
Yes.
Yes, and doing stuff like this is a constant learning curve. So be prepared to take all that in. It is a lot of work, but it has its rewards, and there's a lot of great people out in the community that love this stuff. Doesn't matter how good it is or how bad it is, they'll still watch. Like, so if you're on the low budget end, you just got the cheapest camera, mom and dad got you, because I know there's some young DMs out there that are really fantastic. And some of these kids do a better job than some of the adults that I've seen do. But just turn it on, record a session or two, and then post it. And then if it's something you think you want to get into, then do a little bit of research. There's YouTube videos galore. There's all kinds of information on the webs. So if now I want to get into more editing and what's a better software and compare things and now equipment, go slowly, because you don't want to overwhelm yourself, because I've done that to myself. It's like, okay, I'm going to record, 10 tutorials, and then I'm going to spend one night a week editing, and then by the time you get to that, third, fourth tutorial, you're like, oh, geez, no, not today. So take your time, go slow, invest slowly if it's something you want to do. I mean, if you have the money, jump right in. Most of us live on a budget, but it's also about doing things you love.
Yeah.
And I love this game. I love working with everybody and meeting new people. So,
Sound advice? Jay,
Tips.
lessons learned, advice,
Lessons
tips?
learned. I would say in the process of setting that you got your idea, you're putting the pieces together, I would suggest to try to preemptively mitigate a lot of damage up, as you can before going forward. Talk to everybody up front. You gathered your crew. Discuss everything up front, how serious, get on the same page of how serious you want it to be in terms of priorities. Make sure everybody's on the same page with the seriousness of showing up when you're supposed to. The last thing you want to do is be that guy chasing everybody down. Your friends, mind you. Nobody likes being that guy, chasing their friends down and getting frustrated with them. Asking somebody every week, are you going to be there tonight? It gets stressful quick, and if you're anything like me, it can eat you up inside on top of everything that you're doing. You're already tired, you're already overworked, and that's just something else that you don't need to deal with if you just preemptively talk to everybody.
I think I've jumped the gun a few times, and I was like, okay, Doug, I'm ready. And Doug's going, what are you talking about? No, our show tonight, I'm ready to go. I'm all set up. He's going, that's next week, bro.
But I appreciate the enthusiasm.
And that harkens back to what Sam was saying about, like, one of the one of the hardest challenges is making sure that everybody could stick to the schedule.
Yeah, it's the scheduling. It's extremely hard.
Yeah, and it's
Unfortunately, the invention of this device right here makes canceling plans so easy. So it's really hard to get people to commit to be somewhere at a time.
Sure. And then on top of that, I'll add, as far as equipment goes, tips on that. A lot of times, if you did your research, or at least you put in a few hours of looking into it, what you got out of that is probably good enough to continue. It's easy to go down that road. Once you start editing and everything, it can be frustrating and daunting, and it's easy to get on that train of thought that maybe if I invest a couple more $100, I can shave off another hour of this. If you've got the money, go for it. But otherwise, what you have is probably what you're going to get, even if you spend another $200. A lot of times, it's easy to waste money too. So, especially if you're like me and you don't know what you're doing, you know. So that's what I would say: is the more research you do in your free time, the better, obviously. And a lot of times, hard work is just going to be hard work, and you can over time maybe take some shortcuts and try to shave that down, but the earlier you accept that, the better off you're going to be going forward.
Okay. Doug, lessons?
Yeah, I'll reiterate pretty much everything that everybody else said. Research is definitely key. Learn your platform, whether it's a podcast, YouTube. Learn how algorithms work. Learn how to photo edit. If you've got, learn how to do that. Learn graphic design. Even if you don't have that background, learn how to do it, because that's key. Even just because you have to build your audience through, you can't rely on your platforms to build your audience. You have to use other social media and other areas to build your audience, and the only way you're going to be able to do that is by using those platforms and figuring out how those work. So definitely, above the whole audio, editing audio and video, graphic design is really key, is a big part of it. And I had no idea about that when I first started. So learn about color wheels and what is eye appealing, and so when you make that post on social media that you've got content created that's up now, it gets people to engage with it. They always the saying is you don't judge a book by its cover, but there's really nice looking covers for a reason, because people pick those up. So you need to learn how to do that. So that's really, really key. And just, like I said, have fun with it, be genuine, that's key as well. Don't, I know when you think of YouTube, you think of these really crazy personalities like Miranda Sings and everything. And yes, that is YouTube. And the gaming aspect of YouTube, you're probably not going to have millions and millions of subscribers. I don't know of any board game or content creator that does actual plays or anything that has millions of subscribers. It's just not built for that. YouTube is more for their demographic is female, and they're teens and early 20-year-olds, and so they don't have a whole lot of. It's not for 30, 40-year-old men aren't their usual consumer, it's I knew going into it that, I'm not going to have this huge audience. But luckily the following that we do have is really dedicated and awesome. So yeah, just know the platforms that you're creating content on when you're creating content, because you can make the best content in the world, but if nobody can find it, it's getting wasted.
Yeah, very good advice. Jordan, do you have anything to add?
I mean, being as new as I am to this, I don't have a whole lot of advice to give out just yet. I have learned, for scheduling, for playing, for writing, just be patient with yourself above all else, and just trying to get these things organized. It is so much fun, and it is difficult. I have made several attempts just to get just casual games going. I've tried starting to build a community for other people in the town I'm based out of now, to get their own games going. Just as difficult as it is, you just don't let it discourage you. Keep trying because it is such an awesome thing, and not just role playing games, just tabletop gaming in general is it. I love that it's becoming a bigger thing than what it used to be when I was growing up. Just yeah.
It's nice to finally be like cool instead of like the outcast now, right? Is it right? I mean,
Jordan's been cool
yes.
since day one.
Okay, sorry. I guess that's just me. I was the dorky kid in high school that loved all this stuff and didn't dare talk about it, but now it's nice to be able to.
Yes, it is nice to be.
When we're in public, sometimes people will be like, "What are you guys doing tonight?" And I'm like, "Playing Dungeons and Dragons." And my husband's like,
Yeah, don't. You can't say that all the time.
You don't say it out loud.
You got to pick and choose your place, right?
All right, well, we're about out of time, so I want to ask, how could we find you?
I'm currently the best place to find me is on Facebook for Gamers Against Alzheimer's. I am at Gamers versus Alz on Twitter. Yeah. Most likely for catching any videos of me will be through Victory Condition Gaming. But I've already starting to work on the next long game, 2nd edition. Will be June 21st through the 23rd at Quarterstaff Games in Burlington, Vermont.
Excellent.
For us, you can check out YouTube, Victory Condition Gaming. I'm also on Twitch, Victory Condition Gaming, Instagram, Victory Condition Gaming, Facebook, Victory Condition Gaming, Twitter, Doug VC Gaming, because Victory Condition Gaming is too long. If I could do it all over again, I'd probably choose something shorter for a name, but that's a whole nother episode if we want to do this part 2.
Next year, we'll.
Yeah.
Natty19 Podcast at gmail.com. We check it 4 or 5 times a day, hoping that somebody will email us.
How do we find your episodes?
You find our episodes all over the place: iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, all that stuff. If there's Spotify, if there's a platform you listen to podcasts on and we're not on that, please send us a message, let us know, we'll get on that. We're trying to be everywhere we can, just to cast that wide net. But yeah, we're on Facebook, Natty19 Podcast, everywhere. Facebook, Twitter.
Twitter, I think, is at N19 Podcast.
Okay, yeah. I'm not the Twitter guy. James over there, he's been blasting us all over Twitter, and I don't know how to tweet. I've never tweeted in my life.
Oh, dude, you got to do that tweeting.
I got to get into the tweeting?
Oh, yeah, get in that sweet tweeting action.
It is.
How do we find Halloweenville?
Oh gosh, I wish I had a list now. So you will find me on YouTube and Facebook under Halloweenville. You will also find me on Victory Condition Gaming.
Okay.
You will also find me at a lot of the conventions here in Vermont. You will find me at Vermont Gaming Academy in the University Mall in Burlington running games there. You will also find me at Paracon, which we do every October, and we run a game room in there. And I think that's it. I'm probably forgetting something, but those
We
are
could put it in show notes or something.
Yeah, there we go.
And how do we find Improvised Weapons?
You can follow Improvised Weapons on all the things at IWVTcast. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube as well. We're getting all our episodes uploaded onto YouTube slowly but
Nice.
surely. Otherwise, you can find all of our episodes. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Google Play, we're on Stitcher, we're on Spotify, we're on TuneIn. We are on the Vermont local radio station, the Mono Room, playing every Wednesday afternoon, I believe. You can just load us up on your RSS feed if you want. We are part of the Puma Knife Podcasting Network. You can check them out at teampumaknife.com for all their stuff. And we did a live show here last year. We did a live show here last night. We'll probably be back next year. We did the long game. If Jordan wants, we'll be back at the long game next year.
Oh, totally.
Okay, cool, great. So you can see us there, June 21st through 23rd at Quarterstaff Games. And you can always email us at improvisedweaponsvt@gmail.com if you want to get in touch directly. And our Patreon is patreon.com/IWVTcast if you want to give us your sweet earned hard money.
Yeah, so thank you, everyone. Thank you. Great panel, but great panelists. I want to thank Carnage. I want to thank Tyler from Carnage for helping us get this set up. And I want to thank all of you in the audience. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank the listeners at home, the viewers at home. And I want to give a shout out to Amanda Kahl, who unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, she's running a game right now, so she's probably having a blast, but she couldn't make it here, but she has a great webcomic, Age of Night, which can be found at ageofnight.com.
She's on the D Infinity Live podcast as well.
Yep, excellent, excellent. Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you, James, for doing all of the technical work.
Woo, James.
Thank you, James.
Hey, James.
All right, it's a wrap.
It's a wrap, folks.